Hey guys, welcome back to Sad Dad. My name's Dave Abkary and I am a comedian out of Fresno, California. And this is a podcast where I sit down with my fellow funny friends, my fellow comedians, and we talk about dads. Hi, how are ya? Hope you're August. It's August 1st. I hope that's going well. I hope your August 1st is going well. You're going to be listening to this August 2nd. But yeah, guys, we made it. We're just trudging right along. It is so freaking hot. Everything's on fire here in California. It's fire season. We just broke a record for most consecutive triple-digit days in a row. That was a hot July. Hot. But you guys are cool. I like you. And I have a killer show for you today with a really, really talented and funny guy named Nat Baimel. He's somebody I really, really look up to in comedy. I think we're actually the same age. But it's weird with comedy, you know. We always say young comedians. It doesn't really matter how old you are. It's just how long you've been doing comedy. So we really care about. And so Nat's been doing it for 10 or 11 years. I think he says it in the podcast. Maybe longer than that. So, again, he's just technically, I mentioned it in the show, but he's technically just one of the best joke writers I know. And real funny. Follow him on social media. I'll link all his stuff. He actually just released an album a couple months ago called Be Nice. I'll try to include the iTunes link to that as well. And so, yeah, guys, enjoy. Nat Baimel, everybody. I love him. I think you will too. So let's dive right in, huh? And people run over to help him out, but they don't realize that the throttle is stuck on the motorcycle, so they flip the motorcycle over, and it does this full 360 in the intersection, and then runs the guy over.
Who's already been run over?
He's already falling off the bike, and
so it was a 3-wheeled motorcycle.
Yeah, and it just sucks that he's already been in an accident, and then the people helping him played a part in him getting run over by his own vehicle.
That's why I never help anybody. Because I realize my limitations.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
I'm a great person. I just don't want to hurt.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, what is it? I think it's China, where people don't tend to help each other out because you can sue the person that's helping you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's America too. There's a story of, I'm sure it wasn't an isolated incident, but a kid who was drowning and the lifeguard had to perform CPR on them, and it broke a rib or two. Mm-hmm. And so the parents sued the lifeguard for breaking their kid's ribs.
Jeez, man. Yeah,
the kid was dead, by the way.
He was, and the kid died?
No, the kid was dead.
Oh, he was dead.
And then the CPR saved his life.
Wow. Yeah, because my brother was an EMT, and he said, if you're not breaking ribs, you're not doing it right, as far as the CPR thing goes.
That's how I feel about sex, my man.
Hey-oh, I like it. So you're Nat.
I am Nat.
Hi, man. You've been up here doing a run of shows. You and Theo have been... Dude, it's been so fun hanging out with you guys.
It's been a lot of fun. A lot of comedy, a lot of PS4 Shovel Knight action.
Yeah, dude, you beat that game so fast. You figured out the formula, though, which was if you're failing at a level, just quit so you don't lose all your gold.
Yep.
Yeah, that was. That's
why I always like video games more than real life. You get your do-overs.
Yeah. You were smart about it. I'll just play those levels and fail until I'm broke. And you were very smart about it.
No, I wish you could do that in relationships. You just mess up and you just, all right, let me just leave, come back, and we'll just pretend none of this ever happened. And then I'll use my equipped items to power through this a lot easier.
Nice. I was gonna ask you. Now, are you as big a wrestling fan as I meant to ask Theo about it? But are you a big wrestling fan too?
For those of you who listened to last week's episode with Theo Manhattan, I am probably a bigger wrestling fan only because I've been a wrestling fan longer. I'm not trying to shame him in any way, but we were talking about it. He's only been a wrestling fan for about 3 years. I've been watching it most of my life. So I'd say I'm a bigger fan just in terms of time put into it.
Okay, fair enough. Where does that come from? I mean, because I was talking, he and I were talking off air about how it's weird that like men in their 30s seem to be obsessing over wrestling and women in their 30s seem to be obsessing over serial killers. Like like there's a weird like yin and yang to what's going on. But
and then Chris Benoit is the middle of that Venn diagram.
Yeah. Totally. But like, do you feel like, because it doesn't seem like, it seems like the wrestling friends that I've had have always been wrestling fans, but like, has it just been more socially acceptable to talk about lately, or like what's that big boom like from?
I think in terms of the comedy community, because
It's true, I do hang out with a lot of comedians. Yeah,
I don't really see that too. Also, my friends who aren't comics are also wrestling fans, so I'm not the right person to ask about this.
Sure.
I'm also a little bit shameless. I mean, my move a lot of times when I was talking to girls is I would just unabashedly talk about my passions. And it would actually work for me because they'd be like, oh my God, he's talking about wrestling with me? He's so confident in himself. I gotta see what this is about.
It just became an endearing quality.
Yeah. And I'm also good at showing why I love the things I love. Like with wrestling, I've never been a sports guy, and I know a lot of people who are into wrestling aren't sports guys.
Sure.
And it's amazing because it's sports, but it's just diluted down to what makes sports great. It's the competition, it's the storytelling. You don't have
drama.
You don't have to worry about the boring like baseball games. It's like, oh, it's a best of 7 series.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Because a lot of the drama in professional sports doesn't really play out until the finals or
it comes retroactively when you look back on it and realize what it was. Very much a lot of times you don't realize what it is while it's happening, and when you do, it's great. But it also, you have to be so invested in it. You have to be from the town. You have to know 30 years of their history and what it means to the community. Whereas wrestling, you could literally introduce a new character within 6 weeks. They're going for the world title and everyone's all in on it, because if it's done correctly, you can write a good storyline and have people invest in it.
Sure. Have you ever thought about writing for wrestling?
I did. When I first moved to LA, I thought I had was, because I moved to LA when I graduated and I had a degree in creative writing and a minor in film and mass communications. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect for wrestling. And I'm out in LA, I'll make some connections and maybe I'll write for the WWE. But then I met a friend of mine whose brother was a wrestler in the WWE, and I told him that, and he said, no, it's the worst job you could ever have.
Really?
Yeah, because you're beholden to Vince McMahon entirely, and he'll change his mind day of.
Oh, wow.
And so you also have to travel with them. So you have to move to Connecticut, or at least be able to commute to Connecticut to work, and then you have to go on the road. So, I mean, their schedule is brutal. It's not as bad as it used to be, but you're still on the road over 200 days a year.
Wow.
And you're writing, and then Vince McMahon will decide, oh, I don't like this, so we're going to do fart jokes instead. Because even though he's a 75 or whatever year old man, he's an infant in the case of perpetual arrested development.
Yeah.
You'll try to pitch him good storytelling, as most of the people who are writing for wrestling have backgrounds in TV and they know how to convey an actual plot.
Yeah.
But Vince McMahon is just an old carny barker who's just going to say, no, we're going to do it my way.
Wow. Is it now? Are there like physical scripts that get handed out? Like,
yeah.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, I mean,
never thought about that.
So it happened when they became corporate and they were publicly traded. Because back in the day, you would have bookers who would say, all right, the idea is he beat up your wife and you're going for revenge. And then the guys, they'll just come up with their own storyline for the most part. And when they cut their promos and they're saying, I'm going to get you, they'll write their own things. And it's always been better that way because you know your character, you know how they would speak.
Yeah.
But then now everything is so just sterile and in a bubble that they'll write down your promo word for word and give it to you day of. You have to try to memorize it. And you're saying this weird verbiage your character would never say. They don't give you the creative license unless you're a really high drawn guy, in which case you can say no to whatever they give you.
Sure. Wow, man, that's wild. I know I asked you that question, but I really hadn't put any thought to the writers for professional wrestling before this.
Think of it like comedy. Think of it, you got good at comedy by figuring out your voice and writing your character, and then one day you get picked up by Netflix, and then Netflix says, hey, we really like your persona, but we've got all these investors, so we need to make sure you're saying what we want you to be saying. Here's this hour we want you to perform. You've got about a day to figure it out and do it verbatim. And And it's also, especially when you go back to your question about if I want to be a writer, when anything fails, it's always the writer's fault. They get yelled at, and I remember hearing stories of them getting fired. Vince McMahon's put them in jeopardy safety-wise many times since he's a lunatic and he likes drag racing, and he'll just do a weird alpha male. My favorite thing in the world is Vince McMahon stories.
He drag racing? Is that what he said?
Yeah. He drag raced one of his writers. He just pulled up next to him, revved his engine, and the guy thought, this will be fun. I'll drag race the boss. And then Vince started doing 90 in his, $80,000 car in a 45. And the guy realized, he's going to drive me off the road. I need to stop immediately.
Wild, man. Holy shit. The other thing, because I'm always like, for me, as I nerd out over stuff. And I also kind of nerd out over other people's nerdery. I like seeing somebody who's like bold and impassioned about something, even if it's not something I'm into. And the other thing, one of the more impressive things I've seen you do was that This Is Rad about Iron Maiden.
Yeah, shout out to Kyle Clark's podcast. Yeah. This Is Rad.
It's a great podcast, and he. So, and where did that come from? You were just growing up being a metalhead, or
I'm very strange because people listening right now are just hearing me. You've heard me talk for about maybe 5 minutes or so whenever we started recording, and I come across as very likable from what I've been told. Very
pleasant,
innocent, very naive, but. My taste in music, you would think, he's probably into just pop music, just very friendly, maybe some folk.
Like some folk, yeah.
Yeah, but I unironically like Insane Clown Posse. I'm into Iron Maiden. Punk rock is my favorite.
Sure.
Very much listening to my playlist, you're thinking, this guy's angry and hates authority and all these other things. Like, no, rules are in place for a reason. I just like feeling alive when I listen to music, I guess.
For sure. It's just good to feel something.
Yeah, and Iron Maiden specifically, I think I told the story on the podcast. I remember telling some friends my thing when I listen to music, I just like a hook. And we were talking about this. I just need that catchy thing to get me into it. You can take me
wherever you want as long as there's a hook.
Yeah. And I've always liked metal, but a lot of metal just gets really growly and it loses the plot a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I remember a friend of mine, when I actually first started doing comedy, he said, "You've never heard Iron Maiden at?" Went in his car, got a big old pair of headphones, put them on me, and blasted Somewhere in Time. And I just heard those opening guitar licks, the dual harmonies, and I just remember seeing them asking, "Why is that smiling like that?"
Yeah.
And ever since, I just loved Iron Maiden. Because with them also, I love stories, and they tell stories in their music.
Yeah.
And it's not the usual, this girl broke up with me, and I'm trying to win her back. They're a bunch of nerds. And they decide... Yeah, we're gonna do a 9-minute song about the Battle of Passchendaele.
And that's such a funny visual too. And again, this is just another segue into a mutual fandom of us. But that scene from Venture Brothers when he puts the ear, and he's making them look like prog rock, and you actually dressed up as Dean Venture
for Halloween 2004.
So that's what I'm picturing right now. Is that scene from Venture Brothers is what you experienced. So yeah, that's rad, man. And where did comedy come in? Because you're a genuine fan of comedy. Like you've been over, we've been hanging out, and if you weren't playing Shovel Knight, we're watching comedy. And you made me watch 2 Dice Clay specials.
I sure did.
And like where does how does comedy kind of fit into this, dovetail into some of these other passions of yours?
Well, I've always liked comedy. I remember, in middle school coming across the Comedy Central half-hour specials.
Yeah.
And just I've always loved jokes. And, you can tell jokes all in a row for a living. That's really cool.
Right.
But I didn't think about getting into comedy right away. I was a musician first. I've never wanted to be anything normal. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a wrestler. And then when I was in middle school, high school, I wanted to be a rock star. I got into bands. And then when that fell apart, I wanted to be a comedian.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So you just kind of whittled it down to...
Yeah. And so that happened when... So I was watching whatever Comedy Central was putting on, and I liked a couple of comedians, always enjoyed it. And then my mom, I think it was, introduced me to George Carlin, and I loved it. It was the first time I listened, and I thought, I didn't know you could do this with comedy. This is unbelievable. And he's saying things that part of it's making me uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, you shouldn't talk that way about these things, but
Yeah.
it would stay with me, and later on I'm thinking about it and
Sure.
going, maybe,
Yeah.
or at least I don't agree, but I'm thinking about it, which I never did before.
Yeah, and it's making you feel things, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see the parallels with music, you know, and your experience with music. So
Yeah. So this was probably around my freshman year of college, and I was in a band at the time, and we never practiced because they had studies they had to do, and I was like, this is punk, you guys. Yeah, exactly. Then my mom took me and some family friends to a comedy club in Boca Raton, Florida, and it was very bad. The comedians were no good. They were just desperately trying to do crowd work to get us to pop for anything.
Sure. And you're what, 14 at this time? How old are you?
I was probably 19 at the time.
You were a little older.
Yeah, but I looked like I was 14. I've always looked pretty young, and they were like, oh, how old are you, kid? And I was just busting their balls saying, oh, I'm 14. And they were saying, what are you doing in here? And I'm just riffing back and forth with them. It probably wasn't that good, but for the night it was. And people were laughing at me more than them.
Enough to save the show.
Yeah. So it inspired me. It's the story a lot of comedians have, which is, and I love comedy, I want to give this a shot. It's, man, if he can do that, I can do it.
Hey, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Which is ironic because my first several years in comedy, I probably inspired a lot of comedians. When I was on the road, like, oh, he's getting paid to do this?
I could do that.
I could do anything.
That's funny. And so, you started in Florida.
Yeah.
What's the Florida comedy scene like?
It's better now than when I started. So I did it in Orlando. And when I was first starting out, we had an improv for a little while, but then it shut down for a number of years. So all we had was a chain of clubs called Bonkers.
Okay.
And they're like C, D level clubs. They just put up vinyl banners wherever.
Sure.
But at the same time, I'll always appreciate what they did because they gave me a place to go every Tuesday for open mic. And there was
work.
and there was comics there who were traveling seasoned vets who would be there every week, and they would see you. And if you go so often, they realize, oh, he's serious about this. They'd pull you aside. They'd give you some pointers. Some of them took me on the road with them. That's how I actually started getting paid to do it in the first place, because it's hard in LA because you're just doing bucket spots and you're just trying to perform for free in front of other comics, and everyone's at your level.
Right.
But in Florida, you have people who are showing you how they do it and say, this is how you email a booker, and I'll recommend you for this show.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like a great place to start, you know, and cut your teeth. Yeah.
Yeah, but when I was first starting out, we had the Tuesday mic at Bonkers, and we had a Sunday mic at a place called Austin's, which is a coffee shop, and not really much else. Maybe you can get a guest spot or start hosting on the weekend, but that was it.
And did you start at that age, 19?
So my first time ever on stage was when I was probably 19. I did my school's amateur comedy competition. It was shortly after that comedy show in Boca Raton, and I just started writing some jokes, and by happenstance I saw a flyer the school's having an amateur comedy competition, so I decided to try it. And in my first time ever, I had a great set. I took second place.
Hell yeah.
But then I didn't do comedy again for another 6 months.
You're like, I did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Comedy.
Yeah, I did it. And then I was really cocky my second time doing it, because I thought, I took second place my first time. I'm going to get first this time. And then I bombed miserably.
Oh, yeah. That's usually...
Yeah. And then another 6 months passed, and then I did it again and bombed miserably. And eventually I decided, if I like doing this, it's fun, but I'm not good at it. Maybe I should start going more often and try to get good at it.
Sure.
And so I was one of the New Year's resolution comics. So, yeah, January 2nd or 3rd, 2007, whatever that Tuesday was, I went to the Bonkers open mic, and I started going every week.
Oh, wow. I never thought about that. Yeah, of course there's New Year's resolution comics. There's a bunch of people that are like, I'm going to do it this year. I'm going to, wow. I've never been made aware of that phenomenon, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. In LA, that'll always happen. You go early January to the Improv or the Laugh Factory or the Comedy Store, one of the big ones, and all of a sudden there'll be a huge influx of new people trying it out. And then LA especially will weed them out, just because you put your name in the bucket a few times, you don't do it, you realize, I want to try comedy, but I'm not doing it, even though I'm trying. So I guess this isn't for me. Yeah,
and you don't think to research a little bit further beyond the Comedy Store, like go do a shitty coffee shop open mic, man. Like, that's how.
I've met people at the Laugh Factory and talking with them in line. They said, "Yeah, I've done this. I've been doing this about 3 months now. I've performed twice. I've both at the Laugh Factory." And I said, "Oh, why don't you do any other shows?" "What do you mean other shows?"
Oh, yeah.
And I tell them, it's like, yeah, go to this website. They'll tell you literally hundreds of comedy shows in LA you can get on, and they'll stop for a minute, think, and go, but it's not comedy if it's not at a real place. Yeah.
Yikes. All right.
It's kind of like saying you can't be a bodybuilder unless you exclusively only do Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, or like Gold's Gym. I only go to Gold's Gym.
Well, even Gold's Gym, it's like, well, I don't want to work out or diet or anything. I just want to show up to Mr. Olympia and be awarded for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And so at what point does the move, like what prompts the move from Florida to LA for you?
Oh, it was my college graduation. Like I said, creative writing degree, minor in film and mass communication. Mm-hmm. I can move to New York. I can move to LA. Those are where the careers are in these fields. Or I can stay in Orlando, get a job at Disney World, and then realize 40 years passed in 2 days and I'm old and bitter now.
Yeah. If I see Epcot Center one more time, I'm done with this. But that's
so I'd seen snow maybe twice at that point. Wasn't a big fan. So LA it was.
Yeah. And so what's that experience like coming out from Florida? Like, was it like a bit of a shock for you, or did you kind of know what to expect?
It definitely was. I visited. It was fun when I visited, but the first 6 months in LA was one of the worst times of my life because I didn't really know anybody.
Sure.
And even though I wasn't doing that many sets in Florida, I had been doing it for 2 years at that point. People knew me. People liked me. And so when I was doing open mics, I was doing it in front of real people, and I was getting 10, sometimes 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, I was starting to feature at Bonkers. So I wasn't good. I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying I was a prodigy or anything. Sure. I was just putting the work in and getting chances from nice people.
Yeah.
But I was still getting a lot of stage time and feeling good about myself. But I moved out to LA, and all of a sudden, no one cares if you're a feature act at a CED level club in Florida.
Right.
And so you put your name in the bucket. I'm hardly getting up anywhere. When I am, no one's laughing at me.
Sure.
Getting real depressed. It took me about 6 months before, eventually someone sees me at an open mic, thinks I'm funny, books me on a show, and then so on and so forth. I started getting booked on shows.
Wow, so you're just grinding it out at open mics for 6 months.
Yeah.
Before, wow. I guess it makes sense because if you're, you didn't know anybody. There was nobody. Yeah, you had to
and also take some personal responsibility.
Sure.
I did have a huge chip on my shoulder because I came to LA thinking I'm a feature act at Bonkers.
Yeah.
I deserve to pass the lines. And in fairness, a lot of the open mics I went to, there were a lot of terrible comics. But I also was a terrible comic at the point. But I thought I was amazing, and I wasn't talking to anybody. I thought I was above them, and then eventually, I lost that ego, I lost that chip, and things started falling into place.
It's tough. Because you're still pretty young at that point. You're still your early 20s at that point.
Yeah, my brain wasn't done growing.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I was functionally retarded until 29. I don't feel, I just feel like I was a complete idiot. But at the same time too, it's cool that it's got to be a huge advantage coming into LA with 10 to 15 minutes of material, because it's got to be so hard to get that in LA. If you were to start in LA, it's got to be a nightmare to build an act, from scratch.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I would say when I moved to LA, I definitely didn't have an act.
Sure.
From those early days, maybe one or two, not even the full joke, but the premises wound up on my album.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't know what my voice was. I was just still trying everything. I was just trying to get laughs. I was very inconsistent. I didn't really find my voice until a couple of years ago into comedy.
Sure.
And it's different for everybody. Some people, one of my best friends in comedy, we started almost at the same day together. He was, probably 30 or something when he started, so he knew who he was as a person, so he knew what he wanted to say.
Absolutely. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, I started when I was 21. I didn't lose my virginity till 4.5 years later, so I didn't know anything about anything.
Yeah, right. Well, to your credit though, you've put in the work, and in my opinion, whenever people ask me about you, I always tell them you're one of the best technical joke writers that I know.
I'm the Bret Hart of comedy, man.
You put the audience in a sharpshooter and don't let go. And but yeah, I think that was an invaluable amount of time and I think any person starting in their 30s is very jealous of your ability to do that. Even if they have more to say, your ability to just write a fucking joke is phenomenal.
I appreciate that. And that also does come from, I do love comedy. I study it.
Yeah.
I also have been doing it for a while. And so it's a lot of trial and error that got me to the point where I can mechanically look at my jokes. And it's work, so I have to sit down, I have to look at it written on the page, I have to listen back to it, I have to figure out where the fat is, cut it, figure out my other jokes, how they can connect, and how I can build themes and all that other stuff.
Yeah, right. It's absolutely fascinating to watch you perform. And that was what we were talking about last night, where you have recorded this album, you've got a whole hour-long material that you've recorded now, and now you got to start all over. That seems so scary. To just rebuild an act,
Yeah, and it was scary at first, but I'm finally at that point where, a couple months later, I feel good again, and I feel like I can do, a 20, 25-minute set without having to fall back on my old jokes, those safety nets.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's what you've been doing since this entire time. You've been crushing it, man. It's been great.
I have been crushing it, everybody. I'm very good at this.
This man is a professional.
I have a bad habit of being overly humble and correcting people. It's like, well, I mean, anyone could be good. It's like, no, I'm good at this. Dude, follow my stuff.
Learning to take a compliment is hard, especially if you're somebody that deals with a lot of insecurity yourself,
Yeah.
That's something that I work on. I just try to say thank you and move on, because it still makes me uncomfortable when I get a compliment.
Yeah.
So it's just like, thank you, and I just walk away.
Yeah, although it makes me happy because I'm afraid I'm too gullible, but whenever someone compliments me, I think, what are you trying to get? I'm like, oh, I don't trust everybody. Awesome.
Right. Wow, we've been going on this for a while. This is great. I think I have to ask you at some point, this is a podcast where we talk about dads.
Yeah.
And now you actually have a bit that you do about your dad.
It's
a fun bit, but it's also a little bit sad.
It's a sad dad joke,
It's a sad dad joke
this is very on brand for you. What a get, Dave.
And so you lost your father when you were really young.
Yeah, it was about 3.
Yeah. And what was there ever a point where your mom sat you down and was like, this is everything you would need to know about your dad? I mean,
yeah. So I you don't remember too much from that age, but I do somewhat vividly remember finding out that he died because he had cancer, and so he was sick for a while. But I don't remember that period too well. But from what I was told, I didn't get to see him very much because he didn't want me to remember him that way. So he was in the hospital for a bit, but then he spent the last weeks, if not months, at home. But I just wasn't really allowed in the room. But I think I knew he was in there. I just wasn't seeing him, but wasn't really told why.
Yeah.
And then one day I came home from either a relative or a babysitter, and my mom did the thing where she dropped to a knee to be on my level and said, your dad's gone. And I said, well, when's he coming back? Which is, the worst. Yeah, it's the worst thing I could have responded with.
Don't make me cry on my own podcast, please.
I see you didn't blast it. It's not get worse. So.
Good.
Yeah, and so, my mom, I do remember her having a really hard time with it and saying, it's like, oh, he's in heaven. And I'm saying, well, what's heaven?
Yeah.
And her saying, well, he's not coming back. And I remember not believing her and thinking this was a game of some sort. And I do remember sort of running to the room and going in, and then I saw the bed was empty and he wasn't there.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and so that kind of sunk in. It's like, oh, wow. I guess he's gone, and that's when I learned about mortality. And it's I do want to stress, I talked about this in my newer jokes. It's obviously not a great thing, but my outlook on life, and this comes from probably the way my mom raised me after the fact, is that I see a lot of positives in my life. In my album, I do a joke where my mom literally explained to me, horrible things happen in life. You can either be angry about it or you can make the most of what that you still have.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I always did. And I was very lucky in the sense that my dad was a good dude.
Yeah.
And I always try to look on the bright side where, it sucks. I had a great dad and I lost him so young, but I have a lot. I mean, you probably on this podcast have talked to a lot of these people where, a lot of those people might think I'm lucky because my dad is dead because they wish theirs is dead.
Yeah, there's been some of that for sure.
Yeah.
And so, what do you know? I mean, do you know where he grew up? And
yeah, he grew up in Brooklyn. I'm trying to remember exactly where in Brooklyn. I don't know a terrible much about him, just what I've been told.
Sure.
But he, from all accounts, was the nicest guy.
Yeah.
And the cliche thing is to say no one would ever say a bad word about him. But to be fair, even if he was terrible, no one would say a bad word about him to me. So it's a kind of a dick move.
Yeah. That would be pretty shitty.
Yeah. It's like, hey, nah, sorry about your dad, but he owed me $20. So when you learn how to count, if you did take care of that.
Here's some awful bit of information about your dead dad. Enjoy. Yeah.
But our next door neighbors in the house I grew up, they were a couple with kids, and my mom and dad, they just had me, and so they became that sort of Americana. Oh, we're neighbors and we're friends, and our kids are playing together.
Yeah.
And then they didn't know each other that long, but the husband who lived next door, he became best friends with my dad. And from all accounts, from what I heard, is when my dad died, he's just never been the same.
Oh, wow.
So even though it's very sad, I always see it as very nice that my dad could affect someone like that.
Yeah.
And it isn't just, people blowing smoke, that my dad was a good person and people genuinely did like him and care for him.
Yeah.
And hearing stories about how great he was and how, he wouldn't say a bad word about anybody. And there's only one person he didn't like. And that became a big deal because, he's such a nice person. And besides that, also, he was also really cool. Like, I like wrestling because he got me into wrestling.
No shit.
Yeah, and he was a huge goofball. He used to play practical jokes all the time. And
so cool.
My mom says that I have his sense of humor. And so that's a pretty cool thing.
Do you know how your mom and dad met?
So their story is my grandfathers on both sides, I guess, were business partners at one point. And so they met when they were very young.
Okay.
And they sort of knew each other. They weren't very close, but they knew each other. And then I guess when they were in their early 20s or so, they started dating. It got kind of serious. And then it got a little too serious. They realized, we're young, we're not ready for this. They broke up, went their separate ways. And then years later, they wound up back together.
Yeah.
And then here I am.
There you are. And do you have any siblings?
No,
just you, dude.
They wanted to have siblings for me, but keeping this. I realize it's like, we have sad is in the title of this podcast.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Gotta keep it at that level.
I mean, it's okay, and I don't mean to make it a hold down or anything like that. It's
but like I said, I wish he didn't die, but I don't see it as the most negative thing because he genuinely was a good dude, and I'm very lucky to have had a good dad.
Yeah, right.
Whereas a lot of people don't. They have terrible dads who ruin their lives. A joke I used to tell is, I'm haunted by my dad's ghost, but my friends are haunted by their dad's words, and that seems way worse.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's worth that therapy bill's more than I ever paid.
No shit, right? And dude, like, I've interacted with your mom a couple of times on Facebook, like just promoting stuff. And your mom seems like the coolest fucking lady. Like your mom seems so cool.
Yeah, she's super chill. She's genuinely very funny too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because, you don't really see your parents as a human being a lot of times. You see them as this entity that raised you.
Yeah. We've talked about that a lot on this show. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
But it's also funny to see because, growing up, you just, oh, man, my mom's embarrassing. But then you see her interact with other people and everyone thinks they're the coolest. And you realize, I was just internalizing my own shame and projecting it onto them and thinking they were the embarrassing one when I'm just embarrassed by myself. My favorite story with my mom is... again, to show how awful I was when I was young in comedy, I was featuring for a good buddy of mine, and my mom came up to Orlando and watched the show, and she always insists on sitting in the front row. Yeah. And I used to do this really dumb joke. I was, 23, 24 at the time, whatever it was. Yeah. And I used to do, I don't even remember how I got into the joke. But the joke essentially was me saying I've got a big penis. I don't remember what it was, but that was the whole punchline. Just some young dumb kid looking at his wiener being like 12 inches, whatever it was. Sure. Just very dumb joke, but it was Florida, so it crushed. Sure. Because there's some dumb crowds that used to play for. Yeah. So my friend who's headlining, he comes on stage, and the first thing he does, he says, no. He goes, no, hold up. Everyone, that's mom front row. I can't believe he said that in front of her. He goes, yo, mama, does that really have a big penis? And my mom, no hesitation, she goes, well, let's just say when I had to change his diaper as a baby, I had to do it like this. And then she just holds her arms straight out in front of her. And it's the biggest applause break I've ever heard.
That is hilarious. Way to go, mom.
Yeah. And she's done that consistently. She's because a lot of times when I'm never embarrassed when I see her comment on a status or anything. She also has really good zingers.
Yeah, right. She's super positive, and yeah, she's great.
Which is weird too, because like the joke in comedy is, oh, my parents don't support me, or my parents think I'm dumb. My mom is crazy supportive of what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, because she left a comment. Because I often make the joke when I'm promoting a show. I always say, come out tonight, whatever. Make sure to tell your mom. And then I had tagged you in the post, and then your mom chimed in, and she's like, I already know about it. And I thought that was funny. And then Danny said, in response to her, this is awful podcasting, but there's a point, I promise. But Danny said, oh, so this is your fault. And she said, absolutely not. Everything Matt has achieved, he's achieved on his own, and I couldn't be prouder of him. I'm like,
right?
Holy shit. Your mom is so fucking cool.
She's not even living vicariously through me.
No, she's actively encouraging you. Yeah, absolutely. And now, did she ever remarry after?
She's been engaged to this fella for a while now. Mm-hmm. I just found my stepdad. We're pretty close that way. But it took a long time. You know, obviously you're raising a kid by yourself. Your dating life isn't your primary concern.
Absolutely.
I don't remember her going on dates for the first time until I was probably in late middle school, early high school.
Wow.
So it was a while, because I mean, it's one of those things where she sacrificed a lot. And I have to sometimes remember, I can't imagine having to do that.
Yeah. Well, and it's got to be like, I mean, obviously people get divorced, but it's got to be a little worse when your partner passes away, because, you know, it ends so abruptly. There was never a point for it to get like real sour and you to get real bitter and maybe kind of come to terms with the fact that you weren't supposed to be together. It's like, nope, he's gone. Like, and so I could see how that would take a while to recover from, you know, emotionally.
And I have obviously a lot of friends who come from divorce. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that's like.
Yeah,
because, you know, even though my dad was gone, my mom had nothing but love and kind things to say about him.
Right.
Whereas I've actively seen parents shit talking the other one in front of the kid, and then they internalize that because they think, well, if dad's awful, then I must be awful because I'm half dad.
Yeah, right.
And then if mom's awful, I must be awful because I'm half mom.
Right.
Awful plus awful equals awful. I have no chance. And yeah.
Do you, so like in the absence of like, did you have any kind of a father figure, like, you know, in your life? Or was
my grandfather on my mom's side was definitely my de facto father figure.
That's right.
He is the greatest guy I ever knew.
Yeah.
He was born in Poland. He fled the Nazis, moved to Cuba for several years, fled the Castro takeover.
Wow.
Wound up in New York, met my grandfather, had my mom move down to Florida, and just that story of, you know, worked long hours just to take care of his family. Just the kindest man. Didn't have a bad word to say about anybody, and just loved me unconditionally to bits.
Cool, man. Yeah, and was he the guy? Was he the guy? Well, I know you're not into sports, but was he throwing the proverbial like catch the baseball back and forth with you in the yard, or was he taking you out camping?
He liked sports. He would keep up with baseball and football and soccer.
Sure.
But he also liked wrestling.
Yeah.
Right. Just to bring this thing full circle, wrestling is a bit of a legacy in my family because my dad was a big wrestling fan. Yeah, the joke was when I was first learning to speak, he would teach me wrestler names. So I can't remember if my mom was joking about this, but I just tell it as gospel. My first word was mama, my second word was dada, and my third and fourth words were Hulk Hogan. And there was a period of time where I would just not be able to communicate, but I would just say wrestler names. So people would go, how old are you? And I'd go, Jake the Snake.
That was your response.
Yeah. So I was, I just sort of had that in me. And my grandfather, he used to like wrestling and took my uncle to watch matches live. And he didn't keep up with it as much when I started getting into it. He got a kick out of it, and he'd watch every so often just to know what I was talking about. It was really funny. Ric Flair would come on. He's like, I saw the blonde one. Ooh, he must be old by now.
And now I mean, I know you're Jewish. Were both of your folks, I mean, are you a full-blooded Jewish person?
I've never done the 23andMe, but as far as I know, full-blooded Jew.
Were you raised in the religion as well?
Yeah, we were pretty reformed about it. It wasn't really like pushed on me too much. I had a bar mitzvah, but I haven't gone to temple in a long time. My mom hasn't either. It was like we're casually practicing, but we're not super into it.
Yeah. And so okay. Well, I mean that's That's cool. I mean, it's good to have like a working knowledge of your culture at least. So
Yeah, and I see it more
nice.
as a culture than a religion.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. I'm trying to think. We kind of touched on a lot of the stuff I wanted to touch on with you. I try to keep it like free form and everything. But yeah, I think that was a lot of it. Do you have any like? I always like to ask for like dadecdotes. I call them. Do you have any fun dad stories about either your dad or your stepdad or your granddad or?
Yeah, so like I said, my dad, he loved practical jokes, and he was just a huge goof. One of the jokes he did to my mom one time, it's really corny, but you can see the direct correlation between his sense of humor and mine with this.
Yeah.
Is he called my mom at work one day, kind of frantic, said, "Helen, there's this guy calling for you." She's like, "Who?" It's like, "It's a Mr. Lyons. I don't know who he is, but he's saying he has to speak to you now," and he's really adamant about it. And so mom's like, "All right." She's like, "Here's the number." So he gives it to her, and at work she calls and goes, "Hi, I'm looking for Mr. Lyons." And they go, "Ma'am, this is the zoo." So he would just do stuff like that. But also, like, my favorite story I heard about him is this is actually how he met our neighbors that, they became very close.
Oh, right.
Is they had moved in, they weren't there for too long. My mom was at work. I think he had the day off. So he was in his robe, brushing his teeth. He walked outside to get the paper. As he was doing this, the sprinklers came on and sprayed him. And so he was wet. He went to go back inside, realized he locked himself out. Started freaking out a little bit because he left the coffee pot on, so he was afraid, "Oh no, I'm going to burn down my new house." So he went next door, knocked, and they opened it. It was just some dude soaking wet in a robe with toothpaste coming out of his mouth saying, "I need to use your phone."
and that's how they became friends.
That's how they met.
That's adorable. That's awesome, man. Do you feel like there was any kind of like, because I know I've talked to this with other guests that have either like had a totally absent dad or had a dad that passed away. Like, do you feel like there was ever like a quest for like masculinity that you had to go on, or do you feel like your grandfather kind of gave you a real good like outline and blueprint to what?
Yeah, I mean, he taught me morals more than anything.
Yeah.
He never, sat me down and said, "All right, here's how you pick up the chicks," right? We never arm wrestled or anything.
Sure.
So I feel like I've never had the need to be alpha and to be super masculine.
Right.
And, I had a strong female figure growing up, so I always had, that respect for women.
Yeah.
And she was also a Jewish mother, so I always had that fear of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the masculine thing, not so much, but like my idea of a man was someone who took care of his family and was a good person, as opposed to someone who did chores and hammered cars with chisels and whatever. You can tell I'm not very masculine. Yeah, but it's jackhammer and steaks.
Funny. It's funny that it seems like your life, like you had almost like you found the middle, but you had like the two extremes, like the really strong female figure. And then you were idolizing professional wrestlers on the otother side, You kind of found this like happy center in between,
But even then, my favorite wrestlers have always been the technical ones. Because, there was like the Hulk Hogans who were just the big, they're ripping their shirts off, they're tan, they're flexing. My favorite wrestler in the 90s was Shawn Michaels, who was a smaller guy who was better at what he did. And he was very flamboyant. I mean,
he had the super kick.
Yeah, my buddy Eric Barnes, he has his best way of describing Shawn Michaels' gimmick, which is Agent Gigolo. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
And my current favorite wrestlers now are this guy Daniel Bryan, who's 5'8". He was vegan for a long time, just a really nice guy. Kenny Omega, whose gimmick for a long time is he was an anime character brought to life.
Oh, how funny!
So I never went after like the current big guy WWE keeps trying to shove down our throats is Roman Reigns. He's the big dog.
Oh man,
he wears Jinko jeans.
Does he really wear Jinko?
He wears Jinko jeans, unironically. So that's essentially what they're trying to tell us is going to be the big thing, but I've never been that terribly interested in that.
Yeah.
Same thing with comics too. Like I don't gravitate towards comics who are very much like bitches be stupid, right, guys? which is why watching Andrew Dice Clay, I find it so funny because it's a cartoon to me.
Yeah, right.
This isn't real.
Yeah.
And
He's
the
a
fact that people are
caricature.
losing their mind at it, I find hilarious. Is how is this happening?
Yeah, because people are like standing in the audience, like fist pumping. It's out of control, man.
Yeah.
It's just sort of this larger than life. But yeah, I agree. It's like, well, yeah, that guy's cool, but what's that quiet kid in the back doing? I bet he's doing something weird and interesting. Like, let me see more of that.
Yeah. Or he's planning on shooting us. Either way, I should get friendly with him.
Totally. Oh man, and I think that was the end of it. I felt like I had one more thing. I should have wrote it down for you, but you've been a wonderful guest, man.
Oh, well, thank you.
Dude, you've been so much fun. And thanks for opening up with me about all of that. That wasn't, I mean, that's could be a difficult thing, except you've got a great attitude about everything. So,
I blame that on my upbringing.
Nice, dude. Tell people where they can find you on social media.
You can find me anywhere if you look for my name. I'm, on Facebook at Nat Baimel, at Nat Baimel on Twitter, at Nat Baimel on Instagram, natbaimel.com, and check out my album. We've mentioned it. It's on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Spotify, Pandora. They're playing on XM Radio occasionally.
Yeah,
so
I'll link
check
all
it
that
out.
Yeah, it'll be great. Awesome. Nat, thanks so much, man. I had so much fun with you.
Well, thank you, Dave.
And we're back. Nat, everybody, how'd you like him? He was great. He's so cool. Nat's just a cool guy. I was really excited when I found that. I don't know if you haven't seen it on social media yet, but like the promotional picture I put up of Nat, I was really excited when I found that Iron Maiden font. He was really into that too when I showed it to him. So, yeah, that was great. And I'm in kind of a weird spot right now. I'm in kind of like a dry spell. Like I've kind of like shot my wad as far as like episodes I have in the can. I try to keep like a backlog of episodes. And Nat was my last one. I got to record like a couple this week with somebody. We're going into episode 20. 20 episodes of Sad Dad. Wowzers. Yeah, that's next week. So maybe I'll find somebody special for that one. Maybe I'll finally interview Danny Minch, my partner, my comedy partner. Maybe I'll have him on here. He's been meaning. He's always like, "Hey, man, I'd really like to do your podcast." I'm like, "I would love to have you on my podcast. All you have to do is drive to my house." And he's like, "Okay." He hates coming to my house because it's like a 30-minute drive. Mind you, he has 0 reservations in asking me to come over to his place. I'm just saying. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, maybe I'll try to finally make that happen. Big Sad Dad 20th episode. Extravaluza and Mai Tai mixer. No, I already used the Mai Tai mixer for my dad's episode. Anyway, guys, you have been fantastic today. I'm just rambling. Update on one thing I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, not last week, but the week before that. I had mentioned I had I think I had a spider bite. I think I got like a black widow bite on my foot, like right by my pinky toe. And that's better. I mentioned that to like another comedian. He's like, "Dude, you would die if you got bit by a black widow." And they're not really fatal. I've been reading about it. They're not fatal unless you get bit on like your chest or your neck or you're like really old or really young. So, and what's really weird too is I had this like mysterious flu a few weeks back where I just my temperature just shot up. It was like 102-degree fever, and then it was gone in like less than 24 hours. And I wonder if that was the day I got that I noticed that bite shortly thereafter. And I wonder if I was sick from the spider venom. That sounds so cool. What kind of sickness does he have? Spideritis. Yeah, anyway. So, yeah, that's better. Oh, and today, Andreas Tabuada is coming to my house. Guy from episode 5. He's been working on this movie. He's coming out to record or do some filming at my house because my house looks like Mexico. And it was really neat. I was like, I knew he was serious about this like film project, But I didn't realize, I know Andreas from comedy, and he's a friend. He's laughy, he's jokey, we have fun. But man, when he's in movie mode, he doesn't mess around. It's interesting. It's fun to watch him work. I mean, and it's inspiring. I'm like, man, I got to stop being a dum-dum, like a goofy whatever guy. I should take things more seriously, because seeing Andreas work, man, it's impressive. He's got like 20 people coming out to my place. They don't have to sleep here, thankfully. He rented them all a hotel. I get to play a Border Patrol agent in this film. Yeah. Crazy. So anyway, I'm excited about that, and he's going to be here any minute. I should probably put on pants. Guys, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm going to be down in LA doing a run of shows middle of this month in August. So if any of you guys live in LA, come out. Follow me on social media, and I'll post all the dates and locations and times for all of that. Doing some fun shows with people. Oh yeah, people that have actually been on the show. Kevin Anderson. I'm doing his room. I think I'm doing his room. Oh, maybe I'm not. I'm doing his friend's room. He just recommended me to the guy. I don't know. People. I'm performing with people. Doing a cool show. Oh, I'm doing Matt Cole's room. Matt Cole was on this show. He was episode 11. Matt Cole's a great dude, and out there performing with him and JC Carias. JC Carias is going to be on that show with me. I love JC. And James Fry. It's going to be a killer show. I can't wait. So anyway, guys, I am sorry. I'm just going on and on. I will stop it right now. I will catch you guys next week. I don't know who my guest is going to be yet, because I haven't recorded the episode yet. I'm a hot mess. But either way, I will see you next week, guys. Adios.